Former Youth and Sports Minister Nilante van der Poel has denied claims by current Minister Isaac Hesiama that he paid a contractor 1.6 million cedis in cash for the new Edubiase Sports Complex project. Mr. Hesiama made the claim in response to a question in Parliament. Joseph Obokugakbo has more.
The Minister for Youth and Sports, Isaac Hesiama, was in Parliament himself, but he didn't respond to this question. It was stood down. However, as is the practice in Parliament, his expected response was captured in the order paper. Let me read to you portions of what was captured in the order paper. He says, Mr. Speaker, the funding of this project was not captured in the ministry's budget in 2015 and 2016. There is also no evidence of sponsorship for the project. The source of funding, therefore, remains unknown. Mr. Speaker, upon further inquiries, it was disclosed that the amount so far paid to the contractor, totaling 1,650,271 Ghana cedis, was received in cash from the then Minister for Youth and Sports. The matter has been referred to the National Security for further investigation regarding the source of funding. And then he goes on to say the ministry is providing sports infrastructure across the country, and so they are committed to completing this project in New Edubiase. Well, we gather that the minister in question who made the funding available in cash was Nilante van der Poel, the Minister for Youth and Sports then, and the MP for Ododo-Dio, who we didn't spot in Parliament today. And the contractor in question is the Shagdin Limited, and this transaction was in June 2016. The Sports Minister has refused further comment on this until he appears on the floor of the House to respond to the questions. But MP for Bulsa South, Dr. Clementa Park, who was part of the previous government, is convinced this practice is obviously wrong and the investigation should be done to get to the details of it.
The minister has asked that we hold off for him to come to the floor. As you know, when he comes to answer, there will be follow-up questions about why and how. And if indeed there is any indication of any wrongdoing, I'm sure that the right processes would unfold. But for now, I think we need to be a bit patient to allow for the minister to come to the floor and answer the question as he has indicated in his written response. And after that, I know members of Parliament would have subsequent questions to ask to seek clarity on the way forward on this matter.
The House also approved the appointment of 4 ministers of state and 2 deputy ministers, including the minister who's been appointed for the Information Ministry, Kojo Nkrumah. He got a lot of praises from members of Parliament who wished him well as he takes over as Minister for Information.
There's no doubt that with the impressive credentials of Nkrumah, he will do a good job. He's had the experience, he's worked with us here as a colleague, and he answered all the questions very well to the admiration of all the members of the committee. Mr. Speaker, I've had a personal encounter with Honorable Nkrumah. One was the Minister for Energy. At the time, he interviewed me extensively and did not show any sign that he was an MPP member. He was very objective to all he said and asked me in terms of contributions and issues to address. Mr. Speaker, he was very objective, sincere, professional, and to me, it's a true example of the highest level of professional conduct that we should find in somebody who's going to handle the Ministry of Communication, of Information, Mr. Speaker.
The House also approved the nomination of Evans Poku Bobie as Brunei Regional Minister, as well as the nomination of Paulina Abayage as Minister for the Upper East Region, as well as the other deputy ministers. Issues having to do with the Right to Information Bill were captured on the other paper as an item that they would have dealt with today, but that never happened. However, MPs say they are still committed to helping pass this particular bill. From Parliament House in Accra, Joseph Obokugakbo reporting.
Now, Mr. van der Poel, however, denies the claim. He spoke earlier on Top Story with Evans, Mensa.
Do you know the cost of the project?
Tell me.
The cost of the project is over 6 million. The project was in 2 phases, phase 1 and phase 2. The contractor was awarded phase 1.
Phase 1, what did phase 1 entail?
The clearing of the forest, the building of the perimeter fencing, the changing room, and the field itself. I can't remember all.
Okay.
I can tell you, I know, as for these specifics, I know.
Oh, good. Now, the football club that should play in the stadium says the field hasn't been done, only part of the perimeter wall has been done and the changing room.
Did the football club award the contract?
They did not, but they can see what is there.
Are they consultants?
You don't need to be a contractor to tell what has happened with the building.
From the project when the project is completed and handed over to the chiefs and people of the area.
Many young Ghanaians are leading risky lifestyles, having unprotected sex with multiple partners, and that has resulted in more of them contracting HIV. New HIV cases went up by 70% in the latest figures released by the Ghana AIDS Commission on Thursday. The latest development is a significant setback to the government's target of ending the AIDS epidemic by the year 2030. Efwa Evans-Chinri reports.
Until just 3 years ago, Ghana had made steady progress over a 5-year period in tackling the HIV/AIDS scourge, which has battered Ghana and other African countries. In 2016, 12,000 Ghanaians were infected by the virus, reversing the gains made over the 5-year period. 2017 figures released by the Ghana AIDS Commission today shows an even worse situation. More than 20,000 Ghanaians have been infected in the year under review, a worrying 70% jump from figures recorded the previous year. Here is Acting Director General of the Ghana AIDS Commission, Steve Chermi Etuahene.
The National HIV and AIDS Strategic Plan 2016 to 2020 seeks to reduce new HIV infections. However, in 2017, new infections were as high as 19,101. This clearly indicates that more work needs to be done if we are to achieve the 1990 targets.
The Commission says risky sexual behavior such as unprotected sex with multiple partners is responsible for the huge increase.
Young people are getting infected. Between 2010 and 2016, new infections among young people aged 24 and younger, new infections increased among this group by 45%. Young people take a lot of risks that expose them to HIV infection, but they do not protect themselves. And here protection is use of condoms during high-risk sex.
As the country prepares for World AIDS Day on December 1, the Commission is to roll out a comprehensive program targeting high-risk groups.
What we are considering, the Governing Board of Ghana AIDS Commission has tasked a committee to evaluate the situation in terms of introducing another policy, which is quite similar, pre-exposure prophylaxis. For especially key affected populations like female sex workers and MSM. We know that these are the core groups that actually who serve as source of the infection.
Sanitation Minister Cecilia Dapar represented President Akufo-Addo at the launch.
Government is very much aware of the dwindling donor support to the epidemic. As a government, we accept the challenge and we are committed to providing the resources required to achieve the 90-90-90 targets. We also call on the private sector to complement government efforts by investing in HIV and AIDS in communities as part of their social responsibility. We also encourage employers to support NGOs to sustain the decentralized level response and implement workplace HIV programs.
Under the Sustainable Development Goal 3, all Ghanaians are expected to enjoy good health and well-being free from HIV/AIDS. Efwa Evans-Chinri for Joy News.
Chief Executive Officer of the National Youth Authority has justified his indictment of authorities at the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology for the violent protests which led to the destruction of property at the university. Emmanuel Signet Segri maintains the riots were triggered by a disregard of the students' rights, which they described as oppression. While condemning the vandalism, estimated to cost 1.6 million cedis, Mr. Segri says the remote causes of the unrest should be sufficiently dealt with to enable students to resume academic work. He was speaking on the sidelines of an event to mark African Youth Day celebration in Accra, from where Komla Dome reports.
Get the feedback that the corruption is actually found in leadership, those in the executive, legislature, and then also the judiciary. So those are the people who are corrupt. As a result of that, those are the people we should go talk, look for, and even address these issues onto.
Speakers at an event to mark African Youth Day celebration in Accra established corruption cannot be completely stamped out, but can only be limited. According to them, though the canker robs the country of millions of cedis, the youth can commit to changing the narrative. Chief Executive Officer of the Youth Authority, Emmanuel Signet Segri, says the authority is prioritizing issues of the youth in its activities.
The areas that you've mentioned, identity theft, even with cybercrime, which is very pervasive amongst young people. It is an area that young people, as we sensitize them, will get to realize that you cannot leverage on this for a livelihood. It is a dangerous area which you shouldn't find yourselves involved in.
On the KNUST impasse, he maintained the authorities cannot be absolved of blame.
I have made this argument so strongly that we've gotten to this point because we did not handle this matter with diligence. We did not handle this matter. When I say we, I'm referring to the authorities. I know some people have come hard on me because of a statement I issued, but I mean, the distinction have not been placed, and those who have had the opportunity to speak to me, I have made that distinction clear. In a situation where, again, you find those of us who should be leading the way, putting these young people under a situation where I speak with quotes, kind of oppressing them, they would revolt in a certain manner. Even though taking it to a certain level where you destroy public and private property is not something that myself, as the leader of the National Youth Authority or the agency, would want to condone. But we as leaders should also take up things in a very responsible manner. We shouldn't make it look as if young people have no rights, young people have no say.
Some of the young people at the event shared their views about how they could contribute to the fight against corruption.
Corruption starts from us, and if I don't accept to go into these forms of corruption, then it wouldn't even come up for the impact to be felt. So the spirit of patriotism, we should all have the country at heart, that Ghana is ours, and we should be so patriotic and be concerned about the nation. And also I also recommend that institutions, framework should work. We should follow our framework so that, and there should be institutions and environments that will enable people to come out to report these forms of corruption.
Yeah, I also think we should take our youth anthem, the words in it, we should take it very seriously. See, it says, "Arise, Ghana youth, for your country." See, when we take these things serious, I think we should be bold and stand for the truth, stand for the right. We shouldn't feel shy to come out and shame people. We shouldn't be shy to come out and preach the good news.
They pledged to do right and eschew all forms of corrupt activities. They pledged to do right and eschew all forms of corrupt activities.
I pledge to Mother Ghana that I, Rosina, am not going to go into any form of corruption to help raise Ghana high.
So I pledge myself to always stand out firm and defend the right and also fight against corruption.
I also pledge not to engage in any form of corruption in my country.
Two former ministers with the John Mahama administration are being accused of frustrating efforts to procure ambulances to augment the fleet of the National Ambulance Service. According to the businessman contracted to supply the 200 ambulances, former Finance Minister Seth Tekbe and former Health Minister Sherry Ayite failed to conduct themselves in the best interest of Ghana in relation to the transaction. Richard Jakba told Daniel Datsi on the Super Morning Show on Thursday this was despite the fact the agreement was duly approved by Parliament.
We are dealing with government, which we are dealing with government of Ghana as a country. We are not dealing with Sher Aite as an individual, right? Good.
Right.
Good. So we are dealing with government. So the contract is between government of Ghana and Big C. When you are appointed as a minister to a new ministry that has been there for decades, when you get there, there are things that have been going on because governance is continuous. It doesn't stop and start. It's continuum. So you are appointed from, you are removed from environment and brought to health. When you get there, there are projects that are ongoing, and there are new ones that will be initiated by you. Your predecessors were also doing something. And in their handing over notes, they have all these things listed there because they are major projects who they've given to you, Fred. That is one. Two, when you get there and then you receive a letter like this that comes for pre-shipment inspection. So it tells you that there are ambulances already, project already ongoing. So you get there, you don't know much about it. All that you do is that you call the chief director or you call the technical director of ambulance. Please, can you bring me the file of this project? What do you say about this project? Or even send it to them for them to raise a memo or to advise you on. That's why they are there as the technical people. They are the institutional memory. Because you politicians, you come and you go. You are brought today, the next day you are removed, you are reshuffled. But they are there as institutional memory to assist you, to guide you on ongoing projects.
30 are now in Ghana. I'm saying at this point in 2014, 50 ambulances are there. Now there are 30 ambulances here, and with the accessories at the port. Yes. So the accessories are the...
They've been accessories for the ambulances at the port since 2016.
Since 2016?
And they've been there from the previous government. They started all this mess, and they left the mess for this government to come.
So how did 50 ambulances in Dubai in 2014 become 30 ambulances with accessories at the ports in Ghana in 2016? We'll answer those questions when we continue with the story tomorrow.
We're taking a break now to bring you business news. And coming up in business news, government maintains gold dealership firm Men's Gold is no longer a recognized company following the withdrawal of its license by the Securities and Exchange Commission, even as the Bank of Ghana rules out any bailout for its customers.
Activities of Men's Gold and on what we felt, what our advice to the public, we did that. And we also stated that anybody who dealt with them did that at their own risk.
Emmanuel Abwaji has those details in the business segment. Up next. Chief Executive Officer of Dalex Finance, Ken Thompson, says the Ghanaian economy risks total collapse if steps are not taken by the Bank of Ghana to strengthen the base of the financial sector. The collapse of 7 indigenous banks, followed by panic withdrawals by depositors, according to him, is threatening the survival of the existing banks. At a forum by Joy Business to discuss the state of the country's banking sector, the panelists were unanimous in their call on the central bank to strengthen its monitoring and regulatory role to ensure sanity in the system. Ken Thompson said that restoring confidence in the system is critical, warning the consequences may be dire if not immediately checked.
Ghana's economy is largely informal, and the institutions that lend to this informal sector are the non-banks. I can also tell you that over the last 12 months, as usual, I go around, we speak to our people that do business with us, we share our strategy, and there's still some concern. People are concerned. And I hope that the Bank of Ghana moves quickly to deal with the non-bank sector. And I'm glad that Elsie said that before I did, because there's concern. And we can see huge withdrawals. There are people withdrawing their money. Most of them are withdrawing even before the maturity. And I can understand the concerns. I mean, you have credit unions who have put people's life savings in institutions. You have some of the messages not being consistent, and people really are concerned. I mean, the number of people that come to me and say, Mr. Thompson, I have all my money with Dalex Finance is frightening, and I can see the withdrawals. And we've got to remember that no financial institution is able to pay its depositors on demand. It's not possible. Normally, you keep maybe 10% reserve for people that come for their money when it matures, because the money you take, you don't keep it in your bank account. You use it for loans. But that 10% now is being breached. And if we don't manage it, once it gets to a point where people are not getting their money back, they get more worried, and the panic spreads, and everybody's affected. And without a robust financial system, this economy will collapse. And I'm not too worried about the people that go to banks. I'm worried about the wachi seller. I'm worried about the people that sell groundnuts. I'm worried about the cocoa seller, because all those people borrow for business every day. Some of them even pay on the hour. So my take on this would be to say the Bank of Ghana, and I know it's difficult, but it has to be dealt with quickly and decisively, or else we're all in trouble.
Well, the Chief Executive Officer of Dalex Finance, Ken Thompson, has joined me via Skype right now. Thank you very much, Mr. Thompson. Now, what was the response you got to the issue you put before the panelists at the forum this morning?
Well, first, I want to say that I'm quite happy with the response from the Deputy Governor, because he's saying that it's to cure the Ebola in this non-bank finance sector. Because if we don't deal with this, it will spread. If it spreads, we'll go to the point now where a lot of financial institutions are not lending at all. And if the financial system collapses, the whole economy collapses. Bank runs, it's not the first time it's happened in the world. The experience are universal, what's happened in the past. But we need to be decisive.
All right, but curing the Ebola, as you said, or the cause of it, is not going to resolve the problem of the panic withdrawals, which you highlighted and which you said should be addressed immediately. So how do we address that? How do you expect?
Okay, so you've got to pair by isolating the institutions that have issues, so that the public, the rest are left, can do proper business. And that's why I call it Ebola, because if the virus is not dealt with, isolated and killed, it will destroy the system. So let's go ahead and say that the banks are not worth doing business with. Ring-fence them like you did with the banks, and let the economy grow. Let's do business. But unless people have the assurance that the institutions that are running are credible, the panic withdrawals will not stop.
But it still brings me back to the question. The issue you highlighted has to do with the panic withdrawals. And the panic withdrawals, you're saying that has to be addressed. Otherwise, we're going to have, it's going to affect these indigenous banks and the companies in the financial sector. How is that going to be addressed? Or do you think the answer...
Okay, let me explain further. Why are people withdrawing? Because they don't know which institutions are safe. So let's identify which ones are safe.
Yeah, so except that when they withdraw, I don't think they keep the money under their bed. They send it to other financial institutions.
Pedro, I can assure you a lot of people are keeping under their bed. I can assure you. Yes, I can assure you. And the thing is, if you don't cure the institutions that you deem safe now, will become risky tomorrow.
All right.
Because it's a virus and it's inevitable. Experiences we should draw.
Would you suggest or would you recommend that the Bank of Ghana throw in more money or give these companies that are under due stress from the panic withdrawals? Are you suggesting that the Bank of Ghana give them more money?
I don't think the issue is the issue is building confidence. At some point, you've got to decide. But you've got to address the issue. If you take the issue of the banks, we may not necessarily be happy with what sort of the processes are being managed, some of the deposits are being, but at least the issue has been addressed.
All right. Thank you very much, Ken Thompson. Would leave it here. That's Chief Executive Officer of Dalex Finance, Ken Thompson, is speaking with us via Skype. You're watching JoyNews Prime. Permanent Secretary of the ECOWAS Network of Electoral Commissions, Francis Oke, is lamenting the funding of political parties and elections by Western organizations. Speaking on the sidelines of an election training program for some selected journalists in West Africa, Ms. Oke warned countries within the sub-region stand the risk of compromising their sovereignty by receiving such assistance. Maxwell Agbagba was in Abuja, Nigeria for the training, and our reports.
About 30 journalists from various ECOWAS member states converged at Abuja for the training. The workshop, organized by the ECOWAS Network of Electoral Commissions, was to equip media people with the needed skills in effective election reporting. The selected journalists who attended the program called on the regional body to step up efforts in ensuring more women are elected and appointed. A commissioner of Sierra Leone's National Election Committee, Miata French, supports the call.
And even though countries have been signing up to these protocols, especially, for example, the CEDAW, and some of them have even gone as far as to customize them, but we find that women's participation is still very, very low. In fact, in some countries it's going down, and I think the discussion was a way to go around it, and the mind of the group seemed to be that if ECOWAS were to come up with something that countries signed up to say that they were going to make a commitment to increase the female participation, then that would help.
Spokesperson of the ECOWAS Network of Electoral Commissions, Paul Ejime, has been enumerating some challenges with the organization of elections within the sub-region.
They go from capacity, logistics, and then managerial, and then, man management. I mean, like capacity that I'm talking about, because of the conflict that has, taking hold of so many countries, they lack the capacity. Then money. Election is very expensive, and that is why CONEC, remember, they just finished a study about cost of elections. And that is they have to make it, it has to be cost effective, to be inclusive, to be participatory, and then to also make sure that everybody participates, because if it becomes too expensive, then it defeats the whole purpose.
Permanent Secretary of ECONEC, Francis Oke, fears funding of political parties and elections by Western organizations could jeopardize the sovereignty of countries within the sub-region.
That means the consequence is that when you accept a donor fund to organize your election, they will impose you anything they want. You cannot refuse because you have already sold your sovereignty. That's what I understand. So we have to struggle and plan ahead. Election is every 4 years or every 5 years. Why not plan when you finish one election, start planning to secure money for next election? So that is the question we have to ask our African leaders or ourselves. There are some countries, 70% of the budget is from donor. There are some countries, they cannot start activity if donor didn't give funds. Where is our sovereignty? That is where we have to work. It's a big challenge.
Participants expressed their commitments to use the experiences shared to improve their reports. Maxwell Agbagba reporting from Abuja for Joy News.
A 2020 presidential hopeful of the National Democratic Congress, Guzi Tano, says despite former President John Mahama's widely marketed image, He's a beatable candidate in the party's flag bearership race. Mr. Tano, who has restarted an ambition to lead the NDC, which dates back to the 90s, conceded the ex-president remained a front-runner, but now only marginally. He said Mr. Mahama had much higher ratings in May 2018 when he was yet to formally announce his intention to run for the 2020 flag bearership race. But speaking on PM Express with Evan Spencer, the NDC returnee explained the former president's fortunes have since dwindled.
I think the data coming out shows that he's a front runner, but marginally. It was much higher, I think, in May, even though he had not declared, but it's dropping. Speak currently, but I do know that as someone who was presented, and I say so respectfully because he's our former president, to the public, if you like, as a product, was rejected massively in 2016. So it's for NDC people to assess, think carefully about the choices that they make going forward to 2020. Because if you have a product that goes to market and is rejected, you know, and there's been historical examples of this. Jimmy Carter went to market, he was rejected, term one, he steps aside, and so on. But everybody and their karma, what their karma tells them. So I cannot say for now what the outlook would be for him.
Yeah, but you can't say, but you expect the delegates to say emphatically.
No, well, what I'm saying is that whatever lead he has dropped.
It has dropped.
Significantly.
How do you know that for sure?
Oh, well, we have our own mechanisms.
Are you doing your own polling?
We have our own mechanisms. Okay. We're very quiet people. We don't talk very much. Yeah, and I believe that he's beatable within the context of the NDC Prime.
You're going to beat John Dramani Mahama?
Let me just say, he's beatable. He's beatable. If we didn't think we were in the game to win, we wouldn't have tried at all.
Yes, but my question is direct.
And I'm saying that if we didn't
saying you beat John Dramani Mahama.
If we did not think we were in the game to win, we would not be here.
Presiding members of Metropolitan Municipal and District Assemblies, MMDAs, are calling on government to provide motorbikes to assist assembly members in their various districts to enhance their work at the local level. Spokesperson and presiding member for the Boku Municipal Assembly, David Adoliba, says staying in touch with residents is part of the responsibilities of assembly members, adding some electoral areas are scattered or far to reach. He was addressing the media at the National Annual Conference of Presiding Members in Accra. Joshua Smith's report.
Over the years, presiding members have petitioned government to assist them with logistics to carry out their mandate. At the National Annual Conference of Presiding Members in Accra, presiding member for the Boku Municipal Assembly, David Adoliba, wants the Ministry of Local Government and Rural Development to expedite delivery of motorbikes to assembly members over 254 MMDAs across the country.
We are therefore appealing to the Minister of Local Government and Rural Development to expedite action on the delivery of the motorbikes for honorable members in the various 254 MMDAs in Ghana.
He suggested the emoluments of the assembly members should not be tied to the resources of the assembly, as internally generated funds meant to cater for their needs are inadequate.
According to Act 936 of the Local Government Act 2016, the emoluments of assembly members and presiding members are tied to the resources of the assembly. It is unclear to us because the resources are always limited to the internal generated funds, which have their own challenges.
Some assembly members also spoke to Joy News.
With regards to the 1,000 cedis for the gown for the presiding members, we are not in support of that idea by the General Secretary of NALAC. He did not consult us, he didn't discuss it with us. Our last year's conference, he was here, we never talk about any gown. And gown sewing for the presiding members is not our priority. We have a number of pressing concerns we want NALAC to champion for us. It's not a matter of gown. And there are a number of developmental issues. We need some logistics to work as honorable assembly members so that all our communities will be touched or they will feel our presence, and development will be every community. 3 people go through elections in Ghana per universal adult suffrage: the President of the Republic, the parliamentarians, and assembly members. In fact, plans are underway by the current government to even extend it to MMDCEs. But you will agree with me also that the President's monument
resources to work with, that of parliamentarians, are clearly defined and determined. When we even finish the job and you are going, your ex gratia and other things are well explicit. In the case of the assembly members, who are at the local level to make sure that the substructures work, who are there in the community with the people, we are told that our emoluments will come from the resources of the assembly. Come to think of it, resources of the assembly again has also been zeroed in down to only internally generated funds.
Lack of these motorbikes, some of the assembly members are not able to perform their work effectively. So I will at least entrust on the local government to make sure they deliver the motors within the 30 days we have speculated. That will help all the assembly members continue to do their work effectively. Honorable members do a lot. You know, we are in the community level, and most of the times, anything we are the first point of contact. So in fact, we really need the motorbikes. So I hope that government will listen to us and then provide a motorbike within the 30 days.
The Deans of Conference of Presiding Members are appealing to government through Parliament to consider amending the 1992 Constitution to allow Assembly members to draw their emolument from the Consolidated Fund. Joshua Smith reports for Joy News.
The general lack of inadequate facilities at many charity homes leaves management of such institutions with the daunting task of guaranteeing the welfare of inmates. One of such homes is the Kumasi Children's Home, which has no vehicle to move inmates round for academic and extracurricular activities. Nana Sensu Mensah of Love News witnessed a scene where teachers had to put the children on a commercial vehicle for a football match that was away from the campus. Here is his report.
Some members of the public were surprised to see over 50 children cross a major road to catch a vehicle on the other side. I got closer to the supervisor, Mabel Buama, who explained they had been waiting for a trotro to convey them to a group room for a match. Besides exposing the children to danger, the stress and inconvenience to and from their destination give cause for concern. Madam Buama said the situation is already overstretching the home's meager resources as management has had to hire commercial transport for travel.
To appeal to the general public to come to the home, visit them, and also help us to acquire a bigger bus for social and educational programs, as well as a specialized facility to house children with special needs.
Meanwhile, non-governmental organization Edusai Foundation has reached out to inmates with assorted food items and toiletries. Founder Dr. Kwame Beru Edusai called attention to full implementation of anti-child abuse policies.
The problems facing children in the third world are numerous. We as a foundation cannot do all, but we will try our very best. The effective means is to help educate the parents about the negative effects of child abuse, and also empower the children to be smart, to do everything in their way to help. But I believe the government have policies in place to prevent child abuse, but it's up to us to help in the implementation, which is usually the biggest challenge in the third world. So we will do our bit through education, but we hope all parties all stakeholders will also come together for a holistic attempt to prevent child abuse. We cannot afford to have that in Ghana or in Africa.
Nana Sensu Mensah reporting.
Governments across the continent are roping in youths in the implementation of Sustainable Development Goals. This task, spearheaded by an NGO, Youth Advocate Ghana, is to ensure the inputs of the youth are featured in the goals. It is also to secure the sustainability of the goals in African countries. Executive Director of the NGO believes the youth involvement would accelerate development. He was speaking at the launch of the second African Youth Summit on SDGs here in Accra. Philip Ankres reports. Is read to you.
The African Youth SDG Summit is a continental gathering of African youth to mobilize and inspire active participation in the implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals. It was launched in 2017 in partnership with the United Nations Development Programme.
The summit has been conceived against the backdrop of ensuring full ownership, inclusion, and participation of all stakeholders, especially the youth, in the implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals in Africa, and is under the patronage of 8 distinguished persons selected across Africa. The second African Youth SDG Summit is expected to attract 1,000 participants from across the African continent and beyond.
Country representative of the UNFPA, Nii Osulape, outlines activities to celebrate the day.
On the 7th of November, which is the first day of the conference, in the evening, we're going to be launching what we call the Youth Leadership Fellows of UNFPA. We have a cohort of young leaders that will be bringing into the UN. It is unprecedented. With that initiative, we intend to achieve quite a number of things. We intend to achieve gender equality in the office. We also want to achieve what we call a significant level of youth parity.
A senior technical advisor at the Ministry of Planning and Development, Kojo Esian Mensah Brampa, warned African leaders not to deny the youth the opportunity to explore, to realize their full potential.
The pursuit of the Sustainable Development Goals, and for that matter, African Agenda 2063, we have it anchored on the activities of the youth and your pursuit and your interest. Because that is the development focus for now and the future. That if we're able to invest in the asset that we have now, the population dividend that we're talking about, then we are sure that our future could be bright.
This year's summit, which comes off from 7th to 9th November 2018, is on the theme Partnership with Youth to achieve the SDGs, moving from action to policy. Philip Ankra's report for JoyNews.
18 persons engaged in the business of child trafficking have so far been convicted by the Attorney General's office since 2015, an increase in prosecution since government implemented the Child Protection Compact with funding from the U.S. government. The compact is being reviewed by a high-level government delegation from the U.S., which met in Accra on Thursday. Yvonne Atakra Ubobisa is the Director of Public Prosecutions at the Attorney General's Department.
Council prosecution can say there are 18 cases that we have attained convictions. There are several others in court. In whom we have cases ongoing in Koforidua. There are about 34 or so cases ongoing in Koforidua. There are some ongoing in Accra. There are also several that are awaiting prosecution.
A Deputy Director of the Trafficking in Persons Office in the U.S., Joel Mayberry, said even though Ghana's progress towards eliminating human trafficking is commendable, more needs to be done to resource agencies working in the sector.
We're also concerned that there are persistent challenges that continue to impede progress toward achieving the CPC objectives, and let me just cite 3 of those. The lack of adequate shelter facilities and services for child trafficking victims, the insufficient funding and resources needed to conduct investigations and operations to remove child victims from trafficking situations and prosecute perpetrators, and concern that inappropriate interference or influence obstructed some trafficking investigations and prosecutions. During our dialogue today, the government expressed its steadfast resolve to combat human trafficking, and we are pleased to hear that. Ghana was upgraded from Tier 2 watch list to Tier 2 in the State Department's 2018 Trafficking Persons Report, which annually assesses all government's efforts to combat human trafficking.
And my name is Israel. Thank you very much for watching. You have a good night.
This is JoyNews Prime.